Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Joining us now is John O'Sullivan. He is an editor-at-large at the National Review. He's also the co-founder of the 21st Century Initiative, but he also served as a policy analyst and a speechwriter at 10 Downing Street for Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher passed away today, an influential figure in British and global politics as a whole. Mr. Sullivan, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
In your time working with the Iron Lady, Ms. Thatcher, tell us what you will remember most about working with her and what her most important piece of her legacy will be.
Well, I think in terms of policy, she is the woman who managed to restore Britain's reputation in the same way as Ronald Reagan restored America's. She was his partner in the victory of the Cold War, but most important is in domestic politics. She reversed the drift and the failure of about 30 years and turned Britain once more into a very significant country, not just economically, but also globally. She won the Falklands War too, but that was a kind of contributory factor to her success. Her real success was in reviving the country and restoring its economic success and its pride and political reputation. Of course, I knew her personally as well, so one of the things that I remember about her is that she was a wonderful boss and very thoughtful about the people who worked for her and with her.
You mentioned her close relationship with with Reagan, and of course we saw Reagan famously tell President Gorbachev to tear down, or Premier Gorbachev to tear down the wall. But what do you think the Cold War, the end of the Cold War, would have looked like had Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan not been so close?
Well, first of all, it might not have taken place at all, and if it had taken place, it would have taken place at a later date. And that, I think, is most probable about 20 or 30 years later. Secondly, there was a real risk that it would become more bloody and that more people would have been killed. Now, some people, and we shouldn't forget this, some people were killed in the later stages of the Cold War in countries like Georgia and Lithuania. But nonetheless, there wasn't the mass slaughter which one has come to associate with the end of empires. And that was due in large part to the fact that having established the conditions for defeating the Soviet Union, Mrs. Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, between them, reached out to Mikhail Gorbachev and in effect drew him, made him a friend, and drew him into not a conspiracy but a collaboration to make sure that whatever happened, it wasn't going to be war and it wasn't going to be violent upheavals. And that, I think, is a very important part of her legacy and Reagan's. You may remember she recommended Mr. Gorbachev to Reagan and the world with the words, Mr. Gorbachev is a man we can do business with. And
we saw the business that they accomplished together. And also, very importantly, was her role as a female politician, a pivotal figure in terms of the way women are viewed in politics. And she famously said that she couldn't imagine a female prime minister in her lifetime. Then 6 years later, she becomes the prime minister. What do you think allowed her to break through that glass ceiling and rise to the highest point of British politics, being a woman, being the first to do so?
Well, I think that the principal thing, of course, were her personal qualities. She was known in the House of Commons, and it was the Conservative members in the House of Commons who elected her leader of the party. She was known for her formidable command of a brief, for her solid grasp of economics, and for her strength of character and willingness to take on the Labour Party and defeat them in debate. She had, in fact, the year before she was elected, she had been the political leader, the Conservative leader in the House of Commons who had organized resistance to a major Labour budget, and people were impressed by how effective that resistance had been, how it had forced the Labour government to concede on a number of points, so she was, therefore, for that reason, seen as a potential leader. And of course the other factor is accident. She was in fact supporting someone else for the leadership, Sir Keith Joseph, a great friend of hers, when he withdrew, and she said, well, someone has got to carry this banner forward, the banner of genuine conservatism, of free enterprise, of standing up to the Russians in the Cold War. She was prepared to do so, and other people weren't.
An icon, no doubt, in conservative politics and politics in general, in life and now in death. John O'Sullivan, a man who knew her very well. Margaret Thatcher passing away today. But we do want to thank you very much for your time and your insight into your relationship with her and especially the personal side of Margaret Thatcher. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you for watching Newsmax TV.